Well, the township wanted a mixed-use development in the area, and in particular, given the traffic patterns in this site and the fact that it was on a corner of two major areas, artillery roads, we agreed, frankly speaking, that the project should be mixed use in nature. It had a strong retail component given the existing retail along Ann Arbor Saline that existed already. It predated it, and we believed that the community needed very high-end residential, which the township supported, and the vision for the development wanted a lot of walkability and connectivity into the sidewalks and the parks and along the street. We believed that that was an important component of the development as well. So we shared in that thought process, really the mix in uses, not just in retail and residential, but the mix of variety of products. That was something the township encouraged as part of the form-based zoning, and we incorporated that into our development with the incorporation of townhomes, flats, retail, and residential above it. So we have a variety of different uses, boulevards, a strong streetscape, as well as the walkability component around, and with encouraging the preserve the natural features around the area. The township, by nature of how this site was classified as an E parcel, had a lot of influence in terms of what went there, and also took into consideration what the community wanted. The previous attempts to develop this property were challenging in that others were not respecting the overall features of the site, the wetlands, the traffic, as well as the mix of uses. So the township really encouraged us to be sensitive to all those features, to listen to the neighbors, to understand their concerns, to try to incorporate that into our development, which we ultimately did with altering the heights and different portions of the property to preserve the views of the neighbors, as well as to reduce some of the noise in that location, and also to pull the buildings back far away from the wetlands so we could preserve those views and protect them going forward. One of the early developments under the form-based code were the redevelopments of the retail parcels to the north of our site. So they really set the stage for how the commercial would be designed, how it would look. And one of the things that we worked with the township is to make sure that there was a similar look and connectivity and a feel as a individual would go southbound along our parcel. So now we have set the standard with them in terms of how the retail would look, in terms of the storefronts, signs, and the sidewalks, how they all connect to each other. We were encouraged to extend the sidewalks to the south of our developments, so the neighbors and the future development to the south would have access to our commercial and to the intersection of Ann Arbor, Saline, and Oak Valley, as well as with our development along Oak Valley. We had townhomes, and those sidewalks connected along Oak Valley to the west to hopefully an eventual park and development to the north. To the west. The entire site is walkable. We have a boulevard that runs from Ann Arbor Saline down to the center of the property, which is the clubhouse, and an entire streetscape that incorporates sidewalks and your eye from Ann Arbor Saline. And that was something that the township really encouraged, not just part of their form-based zoning, but just in part of collaborating on how the site should look and how the traffic patterns should look as you pull into the development. The project consists of 197 apartment units, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartment homes. We have a variety of different products available to our residents, which is pretty unique for this type of development. So we have townhomes, we have flats, we have lofts, we have residential units over retail. So we have a lot to offer residents that's really unique to the market, not just Pittsfield, but the overall Ann Arbor greater market as well. We have 17,000 square feet of commercial as well that fronts Ann Arbor Saline, and we have residential units above that, as I mentioned earlier. The project has been successful really since day one. We've been very fortunate. It's been very well received, primarily because of the units, the style of construction, the natural features that surround the site, the retail that is accessible to our residents who really want to stay home, who don't want to drive. So that part has been really successful to us. Our commercial right now is a little bit more than half full. We had a little bit of a slowdown due to COVID that started, but now we have a lot more activity going on there. We have a mix of uses between food service, general retail, service, and pet care. The tenant mix is mostly professionals who live in the area. We have some people that are affiliated with the university. We have some empty nesters as well. We have a lot of people who are in transition who are building a house. Well, this site was challenging that the wetlands that existed on the site were on two sides of the development. So we tried to cluster the wetlands together and preserve them to maximize the views for the residents, to maximize the open area around that. And one of the things that we were very fortunate to have the form-based zoning, because we were able to cluster the density outside the site. The other challenging thing with the development, really, besides the wetlands, were the neighbors. There were some portions of the property that existing neighborhoods were very close to, and we tried to set back the development to create more buffer than it was required, as well as more green area, and we stepped buildings down to protect the neighbors from any noise and to preserve their views as well. So we had those elements that we were dealing with, as well as traffic patterns that existed along Oak Valley and Ann Arbor Saline, which were very highly trafficked corners, especially during rush hour, and to balance out the entrances to the property and minimize any impacts to traffic and try to help improve the situation rather than to hurt it. We were able to preserve 5 acres of wetlands for this development and made it an amenity for our residents as well as an amenity for the overall area. One of the additional challenges we had is by clustering all the density, it became difficult to deal with how we dealt with stormwater management and water runoff. So one of the things that we were able to do in conjunction with working with Township engineers was to design an underground system that would contain the water and hold the water and minimize any impact to the overall system. One of the lessons I learned from form-based zoning is that it requires a lot of collaboration between the planning department, city council, neighbors, as well as the developers. And it really is a process. And at the end of the day, we ended up with a very great product, but it required a lot of understanding of what everybody's concerns were and objectives were in terms of meeting the overall development, and really synthesizing that to make an overall successful development that the township is proud of, that the residents can enjoy, and that the developers can be satisfied with as well. And we were able to achieve that for sure on our development. And one of the lessons learned, I would say, for first and foremost, is you need to go into the process knowing that you need to collaborate. You need to that there isn't one way to develop a property. There's always alternatives. And the other lesson I learned, and it's not just about density, it's where you put it and how you put it on the site. So the form-based zoning doesn't necessarily say, well, you can't build X amount of units, but it's really placing it in the right spot. Often people say it's difficult to develop mixed-use property, especially in a residential area. I don't think that that's necessarily always the case. It has to be studied and planned very well in terms of how you deal with access, parking, trash, noise, and lighting. So often it's an oversight and then creates problems that don't attract the best retailers, because there either isn't a sufficient amount of parking, there isn't enough frontage, enough visibility, or signage. So I think that if it can be done, it takes more time and planning. It takes understanding your market, understanding the tenants, and I think it takes some sensitivity to the township or the planners to understand exactly where the development is in relationship to the commercial center, and to design the property to meet a realistic commercial demand based on its location. I believe you can develop mixed use in a suburban area, but it has to have some proximity to a commercial core where there's traffic and visibility. If there isn't traffic, visibility, or walkability, then I think it's not feasible. One of the most attractive features of this development is its connection to all major commercial uses in the area that are really steps away from the development and really give our residents ability to walk to the grocery store, to restaurants, bike, to really not get in the car. And I think that this is a unique feature of this development compared to other areas of Pittsfield, where you were just required to get into a car. I believe that you can replicate the form-based zoning and the other zoning requirements and design themes and vision in other communities in Southeast Michigan. But I think that it really has to be studied and particularly tweaked for every location, because every location is different. Every location has certain physical natures of the area in terms of parks, wetlands, other stuff, other economic drivers in terms of where the core business is, its access to freeways, where the commercial core might be, where the big business district would be. So generally speaking, I believe it is applicable in other communities, but it may need to be modified to meet the specific conditions of the location in which it's being proposed.